Hey guys, I've been thinking, what's up with Satnam Ramgotra? He's an incredible drummer that's able to go between the worlds of percussion and drum set pretty much fluently. And he's a first call session drummer for both music and film scores. Let's check in with him.
There
Dude,
he is.
oh my God. It's not even that I don't know how to sign in. It's just I totally forgot that, you know, it's IG Live. And first I was thinking I could be on my laptop. And I was like, oh shit. No, I don't know if I can, right? Because I don't, it's all this stupid fucking app shit. So anyway, then I opened my iPad and my iPad doesn't have the permissions for the camera or the microphone. So
Gotcha.
my apologies to everyone. Very, very sorry. But
Dude,
here we
it's
are.
all good, brother.
Yeah.
Dude, it's all good, man. That is a majestic beard, bro. My stuff just doesn't grow like that.
I mean, that's what happens when you don't shave it.
I can't thank you enough for doing this. I know we have a mutual friend in Kirky B,
Yes.
and he definitely helped set this up. I'm going to assume that since many of the people that are watching this aren't as hip to like the unsung heroes of LA, which I lump you in there, dude, because you are criminally underrated as far as like your career and what you've done. Can you start us off? Like, what brought you to LA?
Thanks, man. Well, I mean, ultimately, what brought me to LA was music school. Like Kirky B, I went to PIT, and back in 1992, graduated in '93, and I fell in love with the weather, so I didn't leave. But I had every intention of going back to Canada. Actually, I didn't think I was going to stay or whatever. And when I was at PIT, I started playing around with a lot of teachers there, and I it formed some pretty cool alliances with Efrain Toro and Toss Panos. Of course, as you know, we're super tight, and so things just kind of slowly opened. Doors just kept opening, and it made more sense. I'm like, the weather's great, and actually you can do what you love here, right? So
Well, it's so fascinating because it's like I love the weather in LA. Every time I go to visit, I'm like, this is rad, but I can't help but think I'm just not tough enough to hang there. That's kind of the thing I was talking with, Kurt about. Like, I'm just like, it just feels like the pace is just quicker than what I'm used to.
right. Well, I mean, I don't. I mean, you're just talking about daily life.
Yeah, just daily
Yeah,
life in
yeah,
general.
yeah. I mean, that's for sure. But I was coming from like Hickville, Saskatchewan, actually Joni Mitchell's hometown, Saskatoon, and so for me, the pace and the life, like this was major culture shock, right? And
Yeah.
and coming to LA was awesome because like nobody knew who I was obviously, and nobody cared either, which was the coolest part. Like no one cared that you looked different. No one cared that I wore a turban and had a beard. Like people were so it was there. I just found that there's a lot more freedom here just to be yourself.
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with that. Now, you said you're from Canada, man. So did you grow up there or did you move here young?
I was born and raised in Canada. I left when I was 21, and been here. This is going to be my 30th year in LA.
Wow. That's rad, man.
It's
Dude,
crazy, right?
I'm a huge fan of a couple Canadian TV shows. One is the Trailer Park Boys from way out in Nova Scotia, and then the other one is are you hip to Letterkenny?
Dude, I was just going to say, I hope you say Letterkenny because I love Letterkenny. Hello, Rodrigo from Brazil.
Nice.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I love the humor, man. Like Canadian humor, it's a bit drier, but not as dry
yeah,
as like the UK, and I
sure.
love it.
Yeah. Oh no, it's genius. It's pretty. My sister actually is the one that turned me on to that, and she was just like it's true Canadiana humor, and then uh, yeah, I mean I can't get enough of it. In fact, I think actually they blew out. They just released the second half of the latest season, so I got to catch up.
Heck yeah. Well, I know they're also doing one called Shorzy, which is based
Yeah.
on that character, which is, dude, it's an. Have you seen the promo yet?
No, I haven't. I just read it. I actually like learned about it on Twitter of all places. So, yeah, I got to check it out. I can't wait. It's just yeah, hilarious.
Oh, dude, it's super funny. Okay, so I know that you've done so much in the industry, and I kind of want to take a step back. What made you not only do kit but also tabla? Like, how'd you get into that?
Well, actually, that's really my dad's doing because growing up, I grew up in a pretty devout Sikh family, and so my parents, my dad played the tabla, and my mom sings and plays harmonium, and in devotionally in the temple, and so it was always around it. But when I growing up, I'm also the youngest of five kids, and so I just had such a vast array of musical influences happening all the time that I got drum set just really was every time I heard Bonham play, I was like, oh my god, right? And so my dad, I kept wanting to get a drum set like since I can even remember, and my dad finally said, well, he's saying, if you're going to learn how to play drum set, you have to learn how to play the tabla too. So he started me on my way, and then eventually some more proficient players kind of took over in my education. So one of them, like in India, everyone's your uncle, even though it's not related to me directly, but my uncle in Saskatoon took over. His name's Amritpal Jabal, and he really kind of molded me, and then sent me on my way to LA. And then from there, after PIT, I told my dad that I wanted to go to the Ali Akbar Khan College of Music, and I started studying with Pandit Chopin Chaudhary, and kind of still consider myself a disciple of him, even though I haven't seen him for years. But that's a whole nother story.
Wow. Well, so I knew a guy back in Oklahoma, where I'm from, he was one of I guess Zakir Hussein's like top students, supposedly.
Oh, okay, right.
And dude, I watched him play like one time, and he was breaking down conical for like just dun, dun. And I remember going, that is just, it was so out that it almost hurt my brain.
Right.
Because it was neat, and it was creative, it was new. I'm like, wait, you guys count differently, and then you can sing the rhythms and just so I watched him and this other guy perform this call and response thing, and it was spontaneous, but yet they somehow knew where they were at all times.
Right. Well, I mean, like that's with pretty much anything, but in particular in Indian music, like you have to learn how to say it first before you can play it. Like even when we would get my lessons with Chopinji, we'd always, before we were allowed to write it down, we had to be able to like recite it and then play it, so then we could write it down without him having to prompt us, right? So that, because that's how you really learn it, right? And I think even Steve Houghton wrote a book about like if you can't sing it, you can't play it.
Yeah, so, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I mean, the whole say it and play it thing is super common. I want to say when I saw Steve Jordan in clinic, he did something like that where he said, all right, I'm going to have you sing this groove back to me, and then you're going to play it.
Right.
And this one guy who was having a problem with this specific type of groove, he was just like, okay, well, let's sing it first. And then he sat him on his kit, and he was able to pick it up immediately. It was just something in his brain finally clicked.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't, I don't know what some kind of cognitive response that happens. I mean, but, and, I just grew up with it. So I'm like, yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of other insight to add to that other than that, you have to learn how to say it before you can play it. And I always try to, with, I don't really teach much anymore, but with my students, I would really try to focus on them, like really trying to enunciate it correctly, as opposed to like, the, like one of the simplest syllables is da. Right, and it's DH8, but everyone always says da. It's not really da, it's da. So it's like, because that inflection also is going to come out in how you play it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so I have a story about briefly. Basically, it was, hey, do you want to make $300 at a wedding? I said yes. They said, okay, well, the wedding's with a sitar player. Can you fake tabla for 20 minutes? I said, I'll try.
Okay. Is this your tabla story? Yes. Excellent. I want to hear this.
So it's there's so back in Oklahoma, there's a really large, really rich Indian community,
Mm-hmm.
and so the guy who was playing sitar, I guess, went to high school with the bride, and it was it was a traditional Hindu wedding that they flew in a priest from Delhi to do, and so it wasn't just the gig. I had to learn about the wedding ceremony. So apparently, in this tradition, the bride and groom are up for almost 2 days with no sleep.
Right.
So by
That's
the time they actually, I guess, do their vows, they're wiped. So we show up, and the priest, who I guess has to catch a plane back to Delhi, just starts the ceremony.
Huh.
He's just doing it, and like people are just, there's a bunch of aunties just like walking around and stuff, and everyone's dressed in their best, and I'm like, we're still setting up, but he's like, he's got to go. So the bride's not there, the groom's not there. So I literally watched a bunch of video of Zakir. So I show up, and I basically get one little open note. That's all I can do. But I'm thinking 20 minutes. Let's go.
Sure. Yeah.
And they could not have been nicer because they knew I could not play.
Uh-huh.
But, so the bride comes in, and she looks beautiful. She's got all this, unbelievable gold sari, and we're playing, and they basically kind of just like hush me. They hush me. They say, you can stop. And here's some, I'll never forget, they gave me some soft serve yogurt.
Right.
And they just said, you guys, you're fine. Just you can stop playing, but here's some yogurt. And I'm sitting here, I'm 3 feet from the bride going, beautiful ceremony, just eating.
Yeah, that's, did you get paid?
Oh yeah, I definitely got paid. They were just kind of but yeah, they could not have been nicer. So I've played agnostic weddings, Hindu weddings, Amish weddings, all of the above. But yeah, that one was definitely one of the funnest.
Right on. Well, that's cool, man. That's a good story, though.
Well, I'll never forget it. I'm like, here's the thing. Unlike conga, you can kind of dabble with that. You can kind of dabble with djembe. Yeah. You can kind of dabble with cajon. Tabla is like a lifelong pursuit.
No, that's fair. Because the technique is so intricate, it allows you to play so many different instruments. But I always say, just because I can play them, whatever, but it's not going to be authentic sounding. Just like someone who's playing, conga is coming to play tabla, it's not going to sound authentic, but you can get a sound, right? So
right,
yeah, that's all good. I used to be more like weirded out by that, but I'm not so much anymore. It's like, who cares?
You talk about other people trying to play tabla, or?
No, I'm just saying, like other people, like not really coming from that tradition, trying to play it. I used to kind of get offended because it was so ingrained culturally, right? But actually, like I was, as you get older, you kind of go, that's really dumb. Like it's better just to like be accepting of everything, and so the world can come together and not keep getting divided.
Bro, I'm 100% with you on that one, and it's one of those things where like I also grew up going to like Native American powwows, even though I'm not Native.
Mm-hmm.
I can respect it, but I wouldn't dare like approach the drum while they're, you know what I mean? It's just like there's certain things where it's like, okay, this is so much a part of their culture that like I said, I tried my best, and they were very cool about it. They were understanding, but
right,
it's definitely not something that I'm like, okay, and now I play this. It's like no. Like it's a lifelong thing. But okay, so I did want to ask, man, like you're a really heavy studio guy. How were you able to translate from going to PIT into where you're at now?
I mean, I personally don't see myself as a heavy studio guy, but I like that though. So I'll take it. But that process going from PIT to like just working in LA was a long process, So there was at least 8 years where I was a broke ass musician, just trying to figure it out. And I had, some serious guardian angels that just allowed me to still, hone my craft, if you will. And then eventually I ended up landing a gig that really changed everything for me. And that was Nika Costa's gig. So yeah, just do the grind when you get out. You're doing what everybody else does, right? Like you're hitting up all the open jam, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, and then to try to sustain and then, make a living, you create things. So I made bands that I loved to play in, like had a reggae band for a while, that was, we actually played quite a bit in the beach scene, like when they used to have live music, at the beach clubs.
Yeah, sure.
And then and then and then you just keep doing your thing, man. You keep going on auditions and then trying to get your way in. But eventually, people found out that I played the tabla, and I had some cool gigs like where they were pretty high profile for the time. And well, I mean, I guess I still have. I don't even know who's playing anymore gig wise. But like Lily Hayden was a big key person for me for opening doors for me. I played a gig with her one time at this place called Luna Park in West Hollywood, and from that gig I met oh no, actually it wasn't there where I met her. Maybe it was Donna Delory, but that was another gig that just started doing stuff and people would see me, and then I played a gig with Kevin Gilbert because of Tosh Panos. He got me on the Kevin Gilbert gig, and that was a high profile gig, and I just kept meeting people there, and people would get your number. You're young, you're new on the scene, so you're kind of doing stuff that not really many people were doing. Like not many people were playing tabla with Western music, right? And because I have the drum set ability, like for me to go back and forth, it's pretty fluid because it's the same for me, right? And and there's a couple of Kirsch is another guy who's really amazing at it and is brilliant with it. But anyway, so yeah, but that's how it all started, and really, and then what's happening in Nashville, man?
Oh, dude, a whole lot of nothing. No, I mean, dude, no. Here's the thing: Nashville is still happening, but it's like taking. It took a while, The only thing for like a good year, some change, honestly, was a few Lone Ranger type cats who were going to go and do the like drive-in movie theater circuit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They'd go and do live shows there because like that was the only place you could do it. So they'd have so they'd have a family, come in their car and basically rather than watch a movie, they'd watch a live show. So that and but I was talking with a pretty big name studio guy maybe a week ago, and he was telling me that he was back in the studio in April.
Yeah.
So the guys that were really, really busy were still working the entire time. But tours are starting to happen. And I got some homies that are out doing some mega shows.
Oh, word.
But yeah, I mean, for the most part, dude, I personally, I'm trying to stay in town more.
No, yeah, totally.
Stuff's starting to happen, which is fantastic. But, it's, like I'm literally in my home studio right now. I think I see you are too. I'm trying to build up that, and I'm not sure what the scene's like in LA. I mean, a lot of people live in apartments, so I'm sure home studios are
hard. Yeah, I mean, this is a studio space. It's not inside this is not in my home. Let me see. Can I flip this around? Does this turn it around? Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So a lot of my stuff's still put away because I was just at the session. I did. And then, wait, it gets better. It's like, this little setup here so all my tabla and things that would go, and then I take them there, I set them up there. I have like a little computer rig down there that I can control my mainframe from. And then, then in here is my drum room.
Jeez, dude.
Where I have all my toms. Actually, you know what's crazy? These toms here, those middle black ones, those used to belong to Neil Peart.
Really?
Yeah. And then I have another rig that I can set my laptop up to and control again from there, so I can record remotely. My D-Dub tubs. And then behind the Habs banner, we won't go back there. That's storage, so it's like, yeah.
What a cool space, though, dude. Because I'm I'm super inspired seeing all those freaking open concert drums because I'm immediately thinking there's the symphonic, there's the orchestral
Right.
vibe.
But it's kind of a funny little story actually, because they were sitting in the room at in the artist relations room at DW. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell the story or not, but they were. I was like, dude, what are you gonna do with those drums? They're like, oh, they've gone out of round, so they're a little bit square like. So Neil didn't want them, and so then the guys there were like, well, I don't know, if we can part with them because they were once Neil's or whatever. And I said, oh man, that sucks because you're just gonna toss them. Like, that's lame, right?
Right.
And John Good walked in, and can't remember if it was Steve or anyway. Steve says, we'll go with Steve, and he says, hey John, Satnam really wants those toms there, and John just goes, yeah, he can have them. It was the best. It was so funny, and they sound great, and because they are out of round, they're not perfectly in tune, and that's what I want. Like, I don't, like for this, everyone has everything that's in tune. You got to have some kind of stuff that's a little bit,
well,
weird.
And I freaking love that. Well, it's just, I am gonna get to you working with Hanz because he's my guy. But
Right.
what you like the whole like imperfect thing you just said reminded me of a story I heard about him when he was doing the original Sherlock Holmes record, like the Sherlock Holmes film. The sound he got was this janky old upright piano that hadn't been tuned in God knows how long, and he played it and he said, "That's the sound I want."
Yeah, I can't remember if that's the one I sampled for him too. It's possible. I think because I sampled it with actually the piano hammers.
Wow.
and we tilted it on its side, and then I think that was it. And then I basically played like all the different velocities you could possibly play, and built so he could build himself a sampled instrument of that. But it's live, so it's me playing it. But I think that's the same piano we actually took to the parking garage and they destroyed and recorded it all back. Like, we had my bass. We went to the parking garage actually of Fox Studios here, the scoring stage, and about 3 levels down, so there was like nobody there, and they set mics up all the way in the whole thing. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you this shit. Hopefully I won't get in trouble. Had my bass drum there, and we had the I didn't stick around actually for the destruction of the piano, but the engineers and guys like took an axe to it and stuff, and I think that's the same piano.
So, okay, well, that brings me to my next question. Why'd they destroy it?
Because they wanted to get that sound, like the actual, in a parking garage where it's just like, the reverb's forever, and all of those strings going crazy. It's and the wood and the bass that's coming out of there too, because it's yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gnarly. I mean, I love that movie. I love the soundtrack.
Yeah, it helps to have a lot of money to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I freaking imagined. Oh my gosh.
I also sampled a cimbalum for them for that too, which that was crazy. We spent like probably 2 weeks going from because we did it in this room that's no longer here either. That building's been torn down made for a parking lot, but it had this crazy tall, I don't know, kind of like a chamber, but it was like like a cathedral ceiling kind of thing, but it was only in this one area. But so it had really good. The room sounded really good when you played stuff in it, and we spent so because it wasn't soundproof and we had to sample it. Like it was like literally making samples. We could only record from like I think it was 11 p.m. till about 3 or 4 in the morning. And for 2 weeks, solid weeks, and it's tedious because the cimbalum rings forever, right? So, I definitely earned my keep on that one.
That's so cool. And I love hearing stories because like it's stuff like in the regular studio on a record you usually don't get the time to I guess get the perfect sound, and because I'm a fan of Hans, like I remember him searching through like thousands of hours of different sounds to try to find, say, like the sound for the Joker.
Yeah.
And what I think the sound they ended up with is these two dissonant notes on a cello. And when you
It's
think
Martin Tillman.
yeah, well, I
Yeah.
forget that you know these
Yeah.
freaking people.
Well, actually, Martin gets big credit always because, I mean, Martin's the reason why I was even brought into the Hans camp.
Can you share the story? Because I mean, I messaged you maybe like 6 years ago, and I was like, dude, you play for Hans Zimmer? That's so cool. And you were super nice about it, and you were like, easy there, Junior. That's my gig.
Oh dear. Yeah. Well, yeah. So how it came about was, so Martin and I go way back actually to Lily Hayden. I met Martin through Lily Hayden. They used to have her, him, and a guy named Paul Cantalone, who's a brilliant like pianist, just like genius. And they had a little trio, a little improvisational classical trio called Triptych. And when I met Lily, she invited me to would you like to come play with us? And I was like, yeah, that sounds really fun. So we went, and we would rehearse in Lily's apartment, in the living room of her apartment in Hollywood. And I met Martin for the first time, and we just instantly had like this rhythmic rapport in our playing with each other that was just like, man, like this is really cool. And so that day, the very first day, he invited me to come record with him on a project he was doing, a solo project in Jolimont in Switzerland in 1996. And
Wait. You can't just glaze over that. So you guys are in LA, and he's like, hey, okay. So when you said he asked me to record, I thought like down the street in his garage.
Yeah.
You mean,
no.
Oh, hey, do you want to hop on this plane and go record with me in Switzerland?
Yeah, that's how it was pretty much. I mean, it was a few months later, but it was a project that he was doing in conjunction with Swiss Radio International. And so there was a budget to bring, musicians in. So he brought in all these musicians from all over the place, like Scarlett. Oh my gosh, what's her last name? She's brilliant violinist. I can't even remember all the people's names. It's really bad. But there's bass players from Greece, Yotis Georgioglou, and the actual guy who's playing drums was his best friend growing up. Still his best friend growing up. There, he lives in Zurich with them. It's Mark Halbier. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Mark's a great drummer. Like, you should check him out. He's underrated too. And then the electronic guys that were kind of new on the scene. This Tom Vedvik, who still actually lives here in LA. And anyway, it was just this collaboration. Michel Willy was this like brilliant classical violinist who would rehearse, like play, like just practiced all the time. And I remember we were in where we were kind of housed. So Jolimont was this is this area in the French part of Switzerland, and it's the house that Martin kind of grew up in, and his mom was a music teacher, so it was a music school as well. But it sit on right next to a farm. So there was where we stayed in like a I don't even know what to call it. It was like a wooden lodge, right? So, but the whole thing was like wood. And Michel would practice violin all the time, and it would just like cut through the wood. And then I was like, what's up with that violin, man? Like, what's going on? Oh, it's like, it's just my Stradivarius. Holy shit,
Dude,
there's a reason why I cut through the wood, right? Like it's just, yeah. But anyway, so we did this every day. We would just, for like 2 weeks, we would work on and write a song basically that day, and then record it at night or in the midday, whatever. And then and they made an album. The album's actually really cool. I should pull it out, but it didn't. I know it got a lot of play in Switzerland. It's actually used at music universities, college programs there for like instructional stuff. But anyway, but yeah, so Martin he and I just developed a really cool friendship, and then 2000 and it was either 2000 or 2001. I think it's 2001. He called me and said, "Hey, can you come down to Remote Control?" Which actually at the time was Media Ventures. And I said, "Yeah, I don't have a way to get there, but yeah," because I didn't have a car. That's another crazy thing. For like the longest time, I was a drummer in LA and I didn't have a car. Like trying to go do gigs was like interesting. I had I still have amazing friends that really, made it happen. But anyway, so I made it down to Remote, and I meet Hanz, and I don't know what's going on there. Like they're working on Black Hawk Down, and so I walk into the live thing, and it's got like camouflage netting everywhere, and like Hanz has a setup in the corner there with a computer and everything, and Martin's got his setup, and there's a few other musicians that are set up as well, and they put me in this vocal booth, and he's like, Hanz tells me he wants me to like emulate a helicopter going. So I said, okay, cool. With making, because I make crazy weird drum noises that I used to get kicked out of class all the time for doing in elementary school, right? I just always loved to drum so much. I always just wanted to emulate them with my mouth, and at all times, whatever, with pencils, whatever. So teachers would be like, "Get the fuck out, man." Anyway, I digress. So I go, and he puts me in this room, and I just start going, and it's like 160 BPM, and I don't know, we just I don't even know how long it went, but by the time we came out of that room, he had brought in the entire studio staff into the live room, and I come out, and because I couldn't see, it was blocked off. I had no idea what was going out there, and everyone just hand claps, whatever, and Hans just looks, and he goes, "I can fire you, I can fire you, I can fire you, I can fire you, and he can do all your jobs." I just went, "Yes, do it."
Okay, so you gotta give me an example of a helicopter sound. Like what does that sound like to you?
Well, I wasn't like trying to emulate the actual helicopter sound. They gave me the click, and so I just did a whole bunch of drum things that were at that tempo, but it was at the tempo of like what the propeller would have been, right? So it was 160 BPM, but so I don't know, like where's 160 now, right? Like just like, and then it's got, I think, Bob and Miles singing over top of it. It's actually a really cool scene. It's where, if you know the movie, it's where they all the actual the Foley goes out, and it just becomes the underscore, and it's when they're flying into Mogadishu, and it's just music, and so yeah. Anyway,
you just go in and kill it, and then is he like, "You're my guy now," or does he even know you play drums?
No, I don't think. Well, I don't know how much he knew really about me whatsoever, really. Then, but eventually, he'd start calling me for like kind of once a year for me. The next one I did after that was Matchstick Men, which I actually did play drum set on, and but that score went through so many iterations. Like we worked on that thing for months, it feels like, and felt like, I should say. And then I was still touring, of course, with Nika. And so there was probably about a 4 or 5 year little hiatus where I wasn't really getting called from him anymore. But then Utley Orvison called me in to do one, and I ran into Hans in the hallway, and he was like, "Satnam, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm like, I'm recording with Utley for Vantage Point with that movie." And he goes, "Oh, great. When you're done with Utley, come see me. I want to talk to you about something." I was like, great, because that's how this whole city works. It's out of sight, out of mind. And I went in there, and he's like, okay, cool. So, I want to bring you on the team for the Dark Knight. So, and then after that, it was like, it snowballed. Like it was on pretty much on everything. Not everything still, because there were certain things, like even Inception. Really, I wasn't even going to play on Inception, because he had pulled me to the side and actually said, I want to make this an all orchestral with just electronics. So there's not going to be any live perk other than orchestral perk. I said, yeah, that's cool. And then as it was going along, he came and said, well, actually, we're having an issue because now, because of all the electronics, everything is so perfect that there's no human emotion really, right? So you need, that's what machines can only do so much, but there's that the humans can only bring the feel, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so he said I still want it to be all electronic. So for like 10 days, myself and Howard Scar, who's like one of the lead programmers for Yui the Zebra plugin.
Okay.
And so it was me and him and Chuck Choi, who's one of Hans's main techs, who was running the Pro Tools rig, and Hans had rented a set of V drums, and it was running into Howard's program, and for every single drum he was designing a new sound, and so I was just hearing it back, and then I would just play to whatever they had, and I just play over top of it, and that's how actually Mombasa was born.
Wow. I mean, I've always been so fascinated by studio, so to have my own studio was like a dream come true. But the next level to me is film score, because I'm such a fan of film. I mean, I'm constantly watching movies.
Right. Yeah.
And, even as a kid, I realized how important, honestly, and essential to a movie the film score can be. And I always was curious, though, because my earliest experiences with films were always, seeing Nation, get out of here. I'm so sorry. Hey, love, can you come here and get him? Did you poop? Get out of here. We're potty training right now.
All right, on. Congratulations.
Thank you. He is quite a turd. So anyway, so what I'm saying was, I was always curious. The film scores, are they always to a click, or I mean, or do they allow? Because it feels like sometimes it's very right on the money, and other times it seems very sporadic and almost intentionally sloppy.
Actually, as far as I know, so yeah, generally speaking, it is always to a click, but it depends who you're working with. So like guys like John Williams, still, as I understand it, still old school, writes out all the charts, and like still old school does it to the picture, and there's no click, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
And I have yet to work with him. He's definitely someone I'd love to work with. That would but I don't know if I'll be able to hang. But yeah. Anyway, for everything though, since it's always to click, because everything's lined up, and it's all in sync to the picture, right? So and it changes all the time. So the clicks change too within, like, doing film score sessions can be some of the most like, I always admire everybody when I'm working with cats like Brian Kilgore and Alex Cunha and like those guys, like, because they're all motherfucker readers, right? Like, I can read, but I'm not that great. Like, I'm like they can sight read anything. And this other guy, Pete Corpella, who's a younger cat, who's like just bad motherfuckers. And sometimes, like, not only does the tempos change, it's like there's all the dynamic readings in it as well. Of course, that's typical, but the meters change all the time too, and that can be a real challenge. But I would like to do more of that stuff, but I don't do as much as those guys do. Those guys are all like the first super call cats. I get kind of more brought into like do like the stuff like where they need to like really have like more of a feel happening with. Right, so because it's not all just because sometimes the orchestra stuff, not knocking or anything, just saying it can sometimes just be a certain way. It doesn't require a whole lot of like ethnic feel, if you will, or just any kind of feel.
Sure.
Yeah.
And see, like, I'm not a very strong reader at all. And like, usually when I'm doing charts, it's basically just form charts. It's not like, here's the exact kick and snare pattern, or if it is, it's like, here's the 2-bar pattern for kick and snare. It's nothing fancy. But yeah, right. I was always curious about that, because it's like, I know sometimes when you get called in, they're just like, just feel it and just do what you feel. And it's just, I've always been curious about that. Like, as much as of a fan I am of film composers, it's like I love the emotion of it all. I mean, I was just recording this kind of, I guess, singer-songwritery track for a buddy of mine who accidentally became really famous in China.
Uh-huh.
Somebody uploaded one of his songs to their version of YouTube, and it took off. And so now he's got a huge following in China, and he's doing this new record basically it's almost like medieval in sound. Like it sounds very Renaissance-y, like think kettle drums, very light, mellow cymbals. So I took like my floor tom and I turned the gain up high and I was playing brushes really softly, and it ended up sounding huge.
Right.
So like that mixed with like a room mic, and I love that cinematic scope that you're able to get in those massive rooms where you're trying to convey an emotion beyond like, let's go and get drunk, blah, 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 like.
Right.
So I've always envied people like yourself who are able to do stuff like that. I mean, I know that's not all you do, but yeah.
I mean, it's fun. I mean, I definitely, I love doing film music just because it's not just one genre, right? It like covers everything, right? And like growing up, as I mentioned, coming from such a diverse musical background, like I love everything, right? I like everything from punk to jazz to hardcore to Indian classical to like, light Indian classical, you know what I mean? Like, and to like hardcore crazy Western. The only thing I haven't really grasped onto yet is opera.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I can appreciate it, but it's not for me.
I mean, I try. I actually I spent a shit ton of money during the pandemic on the gramophone, the Deutsche gramophone recordings, just because I wanted to like kind of like really try to embrace it and get into it. And I don't know what it is, but those really high, crazy pitched operatic singers, like, doesn't do it for making me feel good. I appreciate the talent because I know it's like crazy to do that, right? Like, and and they're all like their pitches. Forget about it. Yeah.
Well, and
if
honestly,
only if only all pop singers could have their pitch and just keep singing pop. Yeah.
I was literally about to say the same thing about like Indian classical. Like I remember right when my mom and I first got high-speed internet when I was like maybe 14, 15, I was just going off. I mean, I was finding all these amazing clips of singers and songwriters from all over the country. But like Indian classical, there was, I want to say it was their version of American Idol.
Sure.
It was a mixture of that, but also kind of like Eurovision a little bit, because it was different, like districts.
Yeah, I know. My mom watches that all the time. Like to this day, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's actually scary how many of those people can sing their fucking asses off. But that's India, man. Like they're like everyone. Like there's tabla players are a dime a dozen. There, sitar players are a dime a dozen. There, like every instrument that you can think of. That's like when we see it, we go like, holy shit, that is amazing, and that is so cool. Like that's just every day there, right? Like it's pretty wild.
Well, see, I guess that would just be so honestly overwhelming to be around. Like where, I mean, okay, so LA, it's a mixture because it's like your waitress could be a phenomenal singer, she could be a phenomenal actor, or she could just be a freaking waitress.
Sure.
You don't know.
You know the joke. When you're at someone said you meet somebody from LA and they say, "Oh, so what do you do?" I'm an actor. Oh yeah, what restaurant do you work at? It's like the drummer joke, right? Like the famous drummer or the musician joke. What do you call a musician with a girlfriend who lives with his girlfriend? Homeless.
Yeah. Dude,
yeah. Who's Canadian? I'm Canadian. You're Canadian. Come on now. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Never gotten to go to go to Saskatchewan, and I've never gotten to go to Manitoba, but I've been to Calgary in the dead of winter. That sucked. I've been to British Columbia. I've been all over around like Ontario, and then I've never been to the Eastern Coast. The Eastern Coast. Not been to Quebec too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Calgary's in Alberta. Calgary's is a cool city. We like going there when we lived in Saskatoon. If you got to go to Calgary, you're cool. But yeah, I mean, Canada's a beautiful country, that's for sure.
Oh, dude, I mean, I went there to film this lessons thing back when I had just moved to town, and I couldn't get over it. I guess in my mind, I thought you guys were just completely. I guess it just was going to feel way more different than it does here, and I was like, so basically, it's just a cleaner version of America. Like, great.
Not really. It's a little bit more cooler than that. It's a little more European in terms of culture, and like Canadians or actually, but yeah, sure, you're from the South. I was going to say, like, there's that Southern hospitality that exists. That's really common across Europe. I find that's similar. And a lot of Canadians have that as well too. It's just it's an innate. But yeah. I mean, what's happening? We don't want to get into the politics, but what's happening there right now is fucking crazy, man. Trudeau's out of his mind.
And one of the things that's really got me thinking about the last 2 years is the reason why I want to be able to be at home base is because this is the only thing I can control.
Yeah, sure.
Traveling. I mean, I had friends that had their entire tours, their entire year just got flipped on its head, and there's nothing they could do about it. And they didn't have a home rig because they were living in an apartment, or And so I'm really trying to double and triple down. So not just this kind of podcast thing, but also just working on stuff that I have control over.
Word.
I've been able to reach out to some amazingly talented musicians and be able to pick their brains about stuff, and it's just been really cool to be able to connect, because even through the last 2 years, man, it's like I never once cut anybody out of my life for their beliefs either way. I was just like, dude, if you're good people, you're good people. And I wish more people were able to kind of embrace that, because unfortunately, I had friends and family that wouldn't talk to each other for whatever reason, and
sure.
It although it makes me happy to see that the world's kind of opening up, I hope that we're all able to kind of take a step back and reassess some of the decisions that we've made about each other, some of these preconceived notions about each other that we've just kind of gone with and ran with.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I feel it absolutely does feel like it's opening up more, and it does feel like a lot of people who were drinking the Kool-Aid are more open again, which is good. They're coming back to not being so divided.
Yeah. I think that's the freaking best way to put it. Now,
yeah, I mean, the biggest problem with that whole thing is just the actual politicization of it all. It should have never been politicized. Period.
100% agree with you on that one, brother. Dude, okay, so I did have another question for you. Actually, two, but the first one is, how much of stuff that you record when you're doing film stuff is actually your gear, and how much of it is stuff that's kind of just brought in for that specific thing?
It sort of just depends on who is the leader. If it's a group of percussionists, and then it depends on if the composer specifically wants something that you have yourself, right? So obviously if I'm being called, I'm going to be playing with for example, Jungle Book, the last Jungle Book, it was with that was with Brian Kilgore, I think. Oh my gosh, I can't remember everybody who was on that. That's not good. He's my homie, and his name just totally fucking. Well, anyway, listen. He actually spending a lot of time in Nashville now. Yes, Walter and Alex, exactly.
There's somebody there to help. There's somebody there to help you back clean up, dude.
Well, it's been crazy few years, but anyway, yeah, we I think most of that stuff was pretty much brought in, but there was obviously Indian stuff too, so I brought my tabla in on that. But most of the gear came from it's usually the leader who kind of brings the stuff in, and if they have everything, it's nice because then you don't have to take all your stuff. And actually, from like where my room is, it's upstairs. So I just had to do a session a few days ago, and the cartridge company, I took pity on them and like moved everything downstairs to load up. They had to bring it back up. So I'd rather not have to take my stuff out of here, but it's personal preference.
Well, and when you have such specialized gear, though, I'd be really hesitant to let it out of my sight.
Well, I mean, I don't have any Tychos, so if those, like Brian has Kilgore again, he has some really amazing Tychos. There's another guy, Mike Fisher, who's not really, he's retired now, so but his gear still comes out, and he's got beautiful Tychos, and so I love it when it's a Tycho session because I those drums just I don't even have the words to describe how fun it is to play those drums. Even with your fingers, Emil's got some really great Tychos too. Absolutely.
The only other guy I know that plays Taiko is Taku Hirano.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a unique instrument. I've watched a lot of performances of that stuff, like the live in, Japan and, them touring and stuff. I want to say there was this
Kodo guys.
Clip of Akira Jimbo, who's like Japanese drum set legend, playing with a phenomenal taiko drummer and then just kind of going back and forth.
Right. Yeah, Akira's a bad dude. I used to be a big fan when I was going to PIT. And, he would come do clinics there. Pretty cool. But there's stuff that like I might have that might be called for the session that they don't have. So, I'll send that. And usually we all especially with Brian, we've done a lot of stuff where we'll talk like a day or two before and figure out what we're going to send. And, so yeah,
dude, that's sick. Well, okay. So that brings me to my next question. I know you're a DW guy, proud DW guy now. How big was your first order? Because I imagine you probably had to have a lot.
Well, actually, I mean, I kind of showed you my kit, right? So it's it's a custom. It's a Jazz series, custom sizes. So, but actually, what's funny is they actually messed up the first order. So, and Scott Donnell's not there anymore, but major thanks to him for hooking that all up because he's the one that really made it happen. But so it was 2 bass drums, so it's 24, just standard 24 by 16 or 14. I think it's a 16, and the bass drum is totally custom. It's 23 by 17. So
wow.
And then the toms I wanted to be able to not have to raise the height of the toms every time I switch out the bass drum. So they're actually they're 7 inches deep. So it's 10, 12 by 7, and then there's just 16, just regular 16 by 16. But it's supposed to be an 18 by 18, but it's only 18 by 16. But whatever, that's cool. I wasn't going to sweat that. And then I have a 14 by, or no, it's 13 by 5.5 snare. And then I also have a 6 by 14 solid stave. But the color it took a long time for the drums to come, like almost a year, maybe more than a year. And it took so long because they couldn't get the color right, because I had sent them, he was like, if you have a picture of what you want your drums to look like, then, send me a picture. And so I was actually at a Peter Gabriel concert because my brother-in-law was playing with Peter Gabriel. And I was actually sitting next to Vinny, which was already I was shitting Twinkies, right? Because Vinny's my hero. But I've known Vinny since 1990, which is an amazing story for me. I'll tell it. But Manu was playing. Peter had this, his lighting director had these really cool color things. He did this amazing wash of just electric blue, right? Like you've seen it a lot at concerts, but this one was just like the whole thing was just. And I snapped a photo of that, and I sent that to DW. I said, "That's the color for my drums." And so to me they got it, but they couldn't, like, it kept changing when they mixed the paint, like it was reacting with the shell itself, right? So it wouldn't stay the color. So they ended up figuring out some kind of base, whatever, but it inspired a whole new line of colors for them because they figured out that they could now do even more different colors, right? So it's kind of cool little story there. I mean, most people won't ever know that was born because I fucked it all up. But yeah, so like Vinny's like my hero. So I met Vinny in 1990. I used to like after high school here, I got kind of used to going to the Canadian. This is going to sound really arrogant, but this is true. The band I used to play, like my high school, well, not just elementary, that carried on through high school, jazz band. We had a really phenomenal director, and our band director, and he just pushed us to like, we were playing charts that were like way above our like age range at the time, and so we kept winning these festivals, and we'd go to the national finals every year, and so when high school was, I kind of missed not going to those festivals. So I volunteered to like work at the festivals. And so that was called Music Fest Canada. And so I know I did a decent job there. Anyway, they're the same people who put on Music Fest USA. And so they called me and said, "Hey, would you be willing to come work for us at Music Fest USA in Oakland in 1990? And I said, sure. And then they told me, Vinny's going to be like one of the main clinicians. And I went, and I'm like my mouth just, jaw dropped, right? I went, okay, I'll definitely come, but you got to promise me that on that day, I get to be Vinny's personal tech, right? And so they're like, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. So go, and I got to like I was his tech. Like I set up all of his drums. I like carried all of his gear, and had to, even during the show, like the bass drum beater flew out, which was my bad. But I had to like go in and during the gig. And anyway, it was amazing, right? Like I got to hang out with my hero and get to know him. And he because he was, I guess, really thankful. He invited me along to a dinner that was just myself, Steve Edelson, who was the late Steve Edelson. He's passed away now, sadly. He was the artist relations guy for Yamaha drums, and Lenny DiMuggio, who was the artist relations for Zildjian.
Legendary, yeah.
Yeah. And also oh my God, he just passed away for Remo. Lloyd McCausland was the other guy. So these three guys, Vinny and me, for dinner, right? Like it was pretty awesome. So I was in charge of all the drums for this festival, and there was a lot of drums. And at the end of the festival, and I was playing Yamaha drums then because Vinny was my hero, and that's who was playing Yamaha drums. And also, they had the coolest color, which was cobalt blue. And
okay, so my dream kit that I probably never will get, but if I do, it'd be great, is I want the cobalt blue Rock Tour Custom, the same that Manu was playing.
Yeah, I have that. So that actually, I still have that kit. I showed it to you. It's set up like the toms are set up in the drum room there. Because that was like, it's not just Rock Tour, they're Power Tour customs, right? So they had the longer shells. But yeah, so anyway, like at the end of the thing, Steve called me and goes, "You know what? I have to tell you that this is the very first festival that we received every single piece of gear back, including all the washers and everything. And because I was like really adamant about like, you know, I took pride in taking care of the drums, right? And so, you know, he had asked me there what I played, and I told him I played, you know, Power to a Kid, and I could never find a 15-inch hanging floor, and I really wanted one. and and he goes, well, you know, unfortunately we don't make those drums anymore. I was like, ah, shoot. But anyway, 2 weeks later, you know, FedEx comes and it's this box, and it's a Yamaha box, and I'm starting to shit Twinkies and going, holy shit. And he found the only remaining 15-inch cobalt blue hanging floor and sent it to me. So it was pretty cool. You know, those guys are actually, when you asked me why I came here, but the reason why I came here to LA to PIT was because of Steve Ellison, Vinny, and all these guys kind of told me, come to LA, don't go to Berkeley, don't do Boston. This you don't need to do that route. They're like, just come to LA. It's a cheaper, you know, way. And so, and actually my drum teacher at the time in Saskatoon used to teach at PIT too. So he kind of like sort of prepped me to like what to expect. And so anyway, that's why I ended up here.
Dude, that's so freaking sick. So, well, let me ask you this: when you moved to town, did you have any kind of savings in place, or did you kind of come with hopes and your dreams?
I mean, you know, no, I came with the hopes and the dreams, but being Canadian, you had to like pay everything up front at first, and you know, thankfully, I had very extremely still do supportive parents and family, so that was able to happen. So
that's awesome. I mean, I'm really having a hard time dealing with you having that kid right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Right? Yeah, I still have. I have the bass drum. You know, I even have, and I of course I had to get the 3.5-inch piccolo, right? The brass piccolo. I still have that too. Yep.
So what sizes do you have
8,
altogether?
10, 12, 14, 15, 22 in the brass. My brother, when I visited him one time for like, well, I was 18 and I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do with life after high school. So I didn't want to go to university. And I was in Toronto, and he took me to Steve's drum shop in Toronto, which is like the big drum shop there, right? And they had the only 8-inch tour custom blue, and you know, and I don't remember if he bought it for me that day or if he actually went back and bought it and sent it to me. But anyway, my brother bought me to complete the whole kit.
Jeez, yeah, you sound like you have an insanely supportive family brother. That's it.
It's really true. Yeah. My cousin that just was on here. He's like my little brother. He's also, you know, yeah, we're deep. he actually cool, he plays tabla, and he plays drum set too, and he was a bad little motherfucker. That's why I had already left by then, but I forgot to really hear him play with. Yeah.
That's sick. So I have another question about gear since we're on the topic. What happened to Thai drums? Where'd they go? What happened?
As far as I know, they're still around. I mean, I got put off with them, to be honest with you, when West left, and West was the man. They brought in, I can't remember his name now, but I don't remember his name. Anyway, he sent out letters to everybody, and you know, I was one of the first endorsees for Thai ever, right? And the reason why I went with them was because of Ray Ayotte, and I, you know, Ayotte's the man, right? Like, and that I actually still have that pedal that he designed that they ended up screwing him over on, which is a whole nother story. But he just, and so they always, like, especially West, they took amazing care of me, right? Like, whatever I needed, you know, they made it happen. And when Todd came in, like, you know, he sent out a letter, and it's just like, you know, oh yeah, so it's, you know, it seems like you're like a B-level artist. I just was like, yeah, you know what? How about fuck you? Anyway, so I wrote them a letter, and I didn't say that in those words, of course, but I basically said that in so many words. And Kirky walked me into DW, man. And I actually was floored by DW because I had no idea. And John gave me the whole tour of the place. And I was sold that day. Like, it's just amazing how everything's made there, like, even down to the hardware. You know what I mean? It was really, really, really impressive. But the funniest thing, I just had lunch with Scott Donnell last week, actually, and I was telling him the story of like when we first met, because he said, I remember when I used to come see you play at Nika's shows at the Temple Bar here in Santa Monica. And I said, yeah, I kind of remember. I think you guys approached me, and I think I was kind of rude, actually, because I think I did say that, well, the problem with DW drums is back then, it's like, they're really cool, and when you pull them out of the box, they're really great, and then you set them up and you play them and they sound great, but then after that first gig, they kind of start to sound like the boxes that they came in. and that was true, and that was true back then, and I learned that because one of the first times I ever got to spend time really playing DW drums was I subbed for Abe Jr. On a tour in Germany in 1997 with the Raging Honkies. So with so Mike Landau and Teddy Landau, and,
of course,
and me, whatever. So then years pass by, and I get Peter Erskine calls me to do a session for him playing tabla at his house for something he was working on, which I actually think was another film thing. But he was playing these drums, and I'm going, dude, what are those drums? Those sound beautiful. And he goes, yeah, dude, these are DW. They're their new jazz series. They had totally revamped everything, and now they, like, as far as I'm concerned, like, every drum company makes great drums, but DW is really killing it. So dude, I'm happy,
yeah.
And they made me these, like, you don't need to hear them, but they're these bass toms that I got inspired because Brian has, and a few other guys have these big drums. They're called cadence, and they're like these giant bass toms. They're not like, just bass drums, and so I had DW make me my own kind of version of them, and they sound amazing.
Yeah, so I mean that's so freaking cool, though. I mean, honestly, that was my experience with DW. That was my first experience with DW. I'll put it the same way.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what it was, but like there was a bit of a lull in the sound wise where I was hearing them like these just sound good.
And I remember even the lugs back then, like I broke a fucking snare lug, like I'd never done that ever before in my life, right? And so I was just kind of like, wow.
Well, I mean, I love your freaking honesty about that. I mean, I took the same tour with John Good, and I was completely impressed, not only by the fact that like everything is built in house, but honestly, the clincher for me was that he knew everybody's names, dude.
Yeah, really, yeah. It's pretty wild. I mean, there's some interesting changes going on there now, but anyway, that's more political than we need to get into. And then the other thing, I don't know if you know this, but last year I switched from Zildjian to Paiste.
Yeah, I mean, are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was just, that was like, maybe, it did have a little bit something to do with what's happening there, and the way that they're going more corporate, and it's like, it's not, all those places used to really care about the artists that they were, endorsing, right? But and Kirsten to this day still is like, I love her to death. She's family. Like, it's not, that relationship will never be tarnished, I hope. And but every time I'd be out with like hearing Tosh play and hearing Vinny and hearing Kirky play, and I'm like, and Josh, and I'm just like, and it was kind of, actually, it was sort of it was on Man of Steel, really, because there was quite a few Paiste drummers and there was quite a few Zildjian guys, and I just kept kind of going, wow, those, I'd never really heard the comparison like that in the same room before. Yeah, and I was like, fuck, those Paiste sound really good. And then for what I do with like the film world, Paiste has a lot more varieties of just more weird sounds, right? And I love that. So I was with Toss, and he was going to a little Paiste party, and Kelly Paiste happened to be there, and Toss just went, yeah, so Satnam wants to jump ship from Zildjian and come over to Paiste, and she went, seriously? And so apparently she called Vinny that night, and she called a couple other like Kirky B, and got the blessing, and here I am.
Dude, that's so
I,
sick, though, man.
yeah, and I love these. These cymbals are. I mean, dude, I literally have Bonham's Ride. Here's a really, really, really crazy story. I always thought John Bonham played Zildjian. I didn't know it was Peisty.
Yeah, the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time, right? And so I'm like, oh my God. And I've been like, that's like the sound I've been like searching for forever. And I could, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, he was the 2002s and then occasionally
yeah,
some 602s. Yeah.
yeah. I have some 602s and yeah, and I have, and the Giant Beat, 26-inch Giant Beat Ride, which, you know, all my Zildjian rides were 24. I was always trying to go bigger because I love that sound. And I didn't know he played a 26-inch cymbal.
Jeez. Well,
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
it's such a beautiful thing when you're able to like really find your sound, and even if your sound changes, being able to still fill that void, whatever it is. I know how ears change, and sometimes you're just ready for a switch. I mean, I just saw a thing. I don't know if you know Chad Smith or not. I know of him, of course.
Yeah, one of the first sessions I ever did in LA was with Chad.
No kidding.
Yeah, well, I doubt he'll remember me, but it was with Lily Hayden. Actually, it's actually a really funny story because, not to cut you off, sorry. But she brought me and Chad in to like make grooves for her album which she had just signed with Atlantic Records then, and so we go into the session. It was at the studio in North Hollywood called Energy, and it's just me and him, and we're just jamming back and forth, right? Like, and honestly, the whole time I'm thinking we're still getting sounds, and it goes on for like 3 hours, like the whole session, like, and it's like we're just getting sounds, and then Lily comes in, okay, that's it, thanks guys, like, you know, and you know, Chad goes, all right, let's go get some cocktails. And I'm like, fuck, I can't go, man. I got to go play a gig in San Diego now. And but it wasn't until years later that I was touring with Lily, and she goes, yeah, you know, that session you did with Chad, like that was a complete fucking waste of time. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, you know, you guys were supposed to like we were supposed to build loops to work to, and it's just a big jam session. It's like, that's because no one fucking told us. we both thought we were just getting sounds. We had no idea. Wow. Anyway, so yeah, that was my first. And you know, Chad's a bad motherfucker, man. Like that is pretty awesome.
Well, what I was saying was he just switched to Peisty.
Yeah, I know. I actually just saw that last week, right? Then yeah, or a couple days ago. Yeah. Anyway, the announcement was just made a few days ago.
Right, and you know, the thing that was so cool about it is that he posted this thing. Like, apparently he wrote like a handwritten letter to Sabian, and Sabian even posted a thing and was like, "Dude, we wish you the best. Thank you so much for the memories." And I thought that was just class, you know.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, anyway, so I'm really happy to be part of this, the Peisty family. So.
Absolutely. Now, are you what sticks you playing?
I'm Pro Mark.
Okay, nice. Gotcha.
Yeah, I've been Pro Mark almost. I've tried so many different ones, you know, like went through all the things, but I like top heavy sticks, and Pro Mark for me, it makes, you know, even the 7As are like a topper heavy stick, because then the stick for me does all the work, you know. The rest just follows.
Yeah, so, no, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and also, you know, like I know like some people like lacquered sticks, and I don't really like lacquered sticks. You know, I don't like totally dry sticks either. But the too much lacquer actually rips up my fingers.
See, my hands sweat like crazy, so too much lacquer is just a no-go. They just fly out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, mine sweat like crazy too. But you know, I haven't played drums like that in a long time though, so all my calluses are gone. Actually, I'm fine with it.
Dude, my hands are freaking catcher's mitts at this point, bro. They're pretty broken in, man.
Right on. Well, yeah, I mean, it only takes like a little while for the calluses to come right back, and you know, but
yeah. Well, dude, you know, we've gone on so much about different stuff.
Yeah.
I have one last question, and then I'm gonna cut you loose.
Okay, bro.
What was it like doing the world tour with Hanz? Because I watched it on Netflix, and I was like, I know that guy.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, you can check it out on Netflix. I think still. Um, uh, Let me just put it say that that particular tour was so much fun. I mean, because really Hans was really new to the whole live aspect of it. Really, like especially with his like that. Yeah, he had the Buggles, but I actually don't know how much touring he did with the Buggles or not. But there was a lot of humility coming from everybody on that thing because everyone was just like, well, is this going to be like even successful as a show, right? But he gave me a lot of freedom to like just be me and do what I do, and so because most of that stuff doesn't have drum set, right? So like I'm the one that like came up with all the parts to play for all of that stuff, and it just to make it fun, and so we ended up kind of taking it into more of like a rock show in a way. Anyway, it was a blast, and I loved traveling and getting to go to all those places, and it was the right kind of touring and staying in nice places, and yeah, it was fun.
Well, and was that a full on charts gig or?
Yeah, there was charts. But I had so yeah, and because there's so much music, and some of my charts were like 14 pages long, right? Because they were entire suites of stuff that would go into another suite. Like Inception, I can't even remember how long that chart was. Not Inception. Angels and Demons, where we had my little drum solo.
Which you killed, by the way.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, brother. Yeah. So, but the thing is like I really wanted to have fun with the show. I didn't want to play. I didn't want to keep looking at the charts. So it took me about, I think it was our 10th show. Yeah, it was the 10th show. I didn't use any of the charts anymore. So I was like, and but it was awesome because it makes you learn more actually, because now you have to really just trust yourself, right? And that's how we always did it. Like when we were touring, like when you're touring with the band, like you don't follow charts. You might write charts when you're in rehearsal or whatever, but you gotta know the music. It's just that these pieces were so crazy long, right? Like some of them were like 10, 15 minutes long. So and they're going all over the place. So but I have this weird thing with numbers and things, so I can remember numbers. So we did have bar counter because everything was to a click because we weren't, there's an orchestra, but there was still background stuff happening. So in fact, I think there's only like, I know I was live, and I know the bass player was live, and I know the guitarist was live, and I think Tina was also live. I'm not sure how much else was live, but that's a whole nother story. And then it was all timed to the lights because the lighting director, this guy named Mark Brickman, who's a fucking genius, he does all the Pink Floyd shit, designed this whole show that was like the original show was done in London, that we used to basically, it was like the show that they sold to get a tour. So we did 2 or 3 nights at Hammersmith in London in 2014, and he used the entire theater, right? Have you ever played there, Hammersmith?
No, right. I've never played anywhere overseas.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a really cool room. My first time playing there was actually with Nika, but he used the whole thing. So like the light show would go from all the way from the back of the room all the way to the stage. So like everyone was immersed in the show as well. It was really, really, really cool. Too bad we didn't have that one on video, but still some of that translated to the Prague show. Like they still did stuff like that. So yeah. Anyway.
Well, that was one of the things that was so rad about Peter Gabriel's shows, like Live from a Secret World and Beyond. Yeah. It was full immersion into the world. It wasn't just the music; it was everything. He was in control of it.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it was fun. It was, I'm really super grateful for that gig, and I always want to make sure that I'm living in total gratitude for everything that's ever, because shit's been weird, obviously, in the world. So, we're all good, and I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Dude, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure, dude. Okay, see everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Peace, Reno.
As you can tell from our conversation, Satnam is a super laid-back dude. He's got a unique perspective, not just in his approach to music, but his approach to life in general. And his ability to be a musical chameleon in a wide variety of situations has led to his versatility in the studio and the live world. I'm super glad we got to connect. This is Ben, and I've been thinking.